What's up guys, it's Brad from JBHMEDIA here. Today I'm going to be doing a quick tutorial and breakdown on how I'm doing the VFX for this Last of Us short that we're making. It's a scene where our main actor here shoots a zombie with his bow and arrow and shoots a zombie in the head. It falls to the ground and we have some cool arrow and blood effects. So if you watch The Walking Dead, or if you're interested in making some cool effects similar to the ones in The Walking Dead, this tutorial is for you. So yeah, it's pretty basic. I've done this entire effect inside of After Effects, and I thought I'd just go through the different layers I have and kind of show you how I did it. Alright, so let's get started here. Here's the clip in its entirety here. This is without color correction, but maybe I'll show it with color correction too, I guess. Alright. Anyway, so he runs with the camera here, and then the arrow comes from down the hallway and then gets him in the head, sending this zombie blood everywhere, which is just very very violent. We're not violent people, by the way. We just have some violence in our movies. Zombies are bad anyway, though, right? Well, anyway. So yeah, I'll just go ahead and break this down for you. So yeah, the first thing I did here was I brought in this arrow that I got off Google Images, and I put it in our shot here. And it's just a 2D image, but what we're going to do is we're going to make it a 3D layer. So now what we can do is we can animate it through 3D space. And of course, since our background's 3D too, it's actually hitting that. So yeah, we turn into a 3D layer, and we're going to move it up here like it's coming down the hallway. I'm going to make the perspective match like it was shot from down this hall. See if we can move it like that. Maybe move it down a little bit. Rotate it. Okay. Maybe rotate it a little more. That looks about right. Alright, so now we have that. We're going to go ahead and change its mode here to multiply, which is going to take all of the white out of the image. Then I'm going to go to Effect, Color Correction, Curves. I'm going to make it a little darker. I'm going to go to Effect. Where is it? We want to add some blur to it, so we'll add some fast blur. Maybe whatever looks good, probably right about like that. We'll reduce the saturation a little bit here using the hue saturation node. We'll just kind of bring that down. Alright, so now we have our arrow that matches the scene relatively well for a 2D image, and now we're going to animate it going into his face here. Okay, let's correct this rotation a little bit more. We can also rotate it this way, just so the perspective matches. Okay, so it's going to hit him, so we're going to move this back here. I'm going to scrub through this, so it'll hit him right about there. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to make our first keyframe on all these transform effects. We're going to match our arrow to where it gets hit. And I like to go back probably 3 keyframes, maybe 4. And I'll just move this arrow back so it's out of the frame. And now if we scrub forward 4 keyframes, we see this arrow hit him, and boom. So yeah, what you're doing here, if you're not familiar with this animation, is you're over those 4 frames, you're making that arrow move a certain distance. So yeah, once it hits there, you can either manually track it on the way down. You can kind of move it as you go over time, which is pretty tedious. But for me, this shot was kind of hard to track actually, using the tracker inside of After Effects. But yeah, you can see that looks decent. It's not, once we add all the effects here with the blood and everything, it won't really look too bad. If you don't want to hand track it, you can try to get a good track with either the tracker over here on the right side, or you can try Mocha, which is what I originally tried, but still I still couldn't get a good track. So I did a lot of this by hand, a lot of the tracking after he gets shot by hand, but it turned out pretty well, especially after adding the blood and everything. So yeah, the arrow comes in and gets him in the head, and follows him on the way down, and that's our first step. So animate the arrow, track it onto his head, or manually move it if you can't find a good tracking point, and there's your arrow. The second step is having this flesh wound appear. This flesh wound is a 2D image from Action Essentials. After using some data from Mocha to track this flesh wound onto our zombie head here, I simply added some fast blur, a curves effect, and then decreased the saturation a little bit using these effects over here. So that's our second step, and then our third step is basically just adding blood. The first thing we have here is a little blood burst. You can see the original footage. See if I can find it here. So when you're doing these blood effects, you have these great stock elements, but you have to manipulate them in the right way to make it look a little more realistic. So what I did here is I took a piece of stock footage called Bloodburst 6 from Action Essentials, and I overlaid it on our actor here. But as you can see, the blood doesn't look realistic right now. It doesn't match the scene very well. So what we're going to do is we're going to change the colors a little bit and add some blur and manipulate the data that we're getting. So first thing I did was add some curves to it to decrease the brightness here. You can boost it up or bring it down. So I brought down the brightness a little bit to make it a little darker to match this kind of corridor in here. And then second thing I did was add some fast blur, and that really brings it into the shot as everything else is kind of blurry. Then we could keep adding blood effects in the right areas to make this look good. So the next thing I did was this blood burst coming directly out of the arrow here. Then I used some similar effects on this blood shot with the curves, hue, and saturation, and the fast blur. And something that sometimes I like to do when doing these blood effects is messing with the scale over time. So what I did for this particular shot is for this particular piece of stock footage is I scaled it up as the shot goes on, so it looks like the blood's coming out the camera, as you can see there. So I have two keyframes here, one where the image is kind of small, then I scale it up as time goes on, so then it gets really big, like it's about to hit the camera. But as you can see here, I still add my effects here to make it blend with the scene a little bit better. Some curves, hue and saturation, and fast blur. So great. Next thing I did is I added this nice little quark hit to add like kind of a blood mist coming out of him. So yeah, again, I scaled it up as time goes on to make it look like it was really bursting out of him. And yeah, that's pretty much the extent of it. You can see here these cork shots are actually just white when you originally get them. It's like some kind of mist. But what you can do is you add this tint effect to it and make it red. And then once you make it red, you can mess with the data more. Like again, I add my curves to it to darken it a little bit because it's a zombie blood and it's in this dark corridor. And then I decrease the saturation. And then finally, of course, add our fast blur to make it blend into the shot a little bit better. Okay, so we have another hit here, which is called the couch hit. The couch hit, I didn't add any effects to, but I did subtract it from the scene, which means I took I took our render layer mode here, and I went up to subtract, and it subtracts that light data from the scene, so it looks it's like a dark poof coming out of him and little particles. And again, I scaled that image up as well as time went on. Finally, for our the last part of the scene here, we have a little blood splat. For this, I just took a image of a blood splatter from Action Essentials. Let's see if I can show you here. It's actually really scaled up. Here's the original scale of it. So I took this image, and I scaled it way up, and I decided where I wanted it to hit the screen. So I said right about here is pretty good. And then it's really scaled up, so you're getting a lot of pixels here. So what you want to do here to make it look more realistic when you have these pixels, and also when blood hits the camera, you're not gonna, and not everything's gonna be in focus. You have your depth of field based on your aperture of the lens you're using. So you want to add a little fast blur, which blurs it out. And then I also mess with the curves, and then the hue and saturation to decrease the colors a little bit. So yeah, that's our first blood splatter. And finally, our last effect is just another blood splatter at the end of the shot. As he goes on here, he falls on his knees, and thought that'd be a good time to have a little more blood hit the screen. So there we go. As you can scrub through it here, then it hits right there. For this, I scaled the blood splatter way up, and then simply overlaid it on the screen using the same effect with adding some by adding some fast blur. And then for the curve setting on this particular piece of stock footage, I actually went down to the alpha setting and I boosted it up. And what that's going to do is it's going to make it much denser. Alpha is what's clear in the shot, what's going to show through. So here's the original. It's just kind of like faded. But if you increase that alpha, you're going to get a little more dense of a blood. So I increased that a little bit, and then finally I added my hue and saturation to match it to the color profile that we shot in. So yeah, that's the gist of the shot. It's a pretty basic effect. You just want to composite those elements together properly to make it seem a little more realistic. Anyway, that's it, guys. Be sure to like this video if you thought it was helpful. As always, feel free to leave a comment if you have any questions or suggestions, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. The JBHMEDIA Facebook page is in the description below if you want to like it there to get the latest updates. And yeah, go ahead and if you want to see this short film when it comes out, go ahead and click that subscribe button. It'll help us a lot. Anyway, yeah, I'll see you guys next time.